Welcome to the Dear Applicants podcast, where we help aspiring students navigate the complex and often overwhelming world of university applications. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Dear Applicants. I am your host, Jonathan, and joining me today for the second time is Matthias. If you don't know who Matthias is, check out one of our earliest episodes where Matthias was kind enough to walk us through his application process as well as his time at university. I'll have our wonderful editor link the video here. You guys can just click on it if you're on YouTube and go straight to it. Anyway, thank you for being with us again, Matthias.
Glad to be
How
back.
have you been in the last year? Almost a year, right? Since we last met?
Yes, it has almost been. I think I was one of your earliest episodes.
Second one, yeah.
Second episode. So it's really good to be back. I actually changed my job in the last 1 year that since we spoke. So I actually work for.
Still in cybersecurity though.
I'm still in cybersecurity. I'm just working for another training company. It's called SANS. SANS. So this is a shameless plug for my employer. But we do cybersecurity training. We train all sorts of different domains. A lot of technical people come for our training as well.
So what does cybersecurity training mean? If you were to explain it to a layman, me.
Right? So there are different cybersecurity domains, right? So think of it as you have like a gatekeeper, someone who keeps people out. And then if people come in, if they do break through that parameter security, then you have a task force that go find out where they are and try and kick them out of the system as well. So we do different sort of domains. So those are already two domains that I talk about. And then of course, there are people who try, they're the good guys, but they try to break into systems.
Like a red team.
Yeah, exactly like a red team. They break into systems to see where the bugs or the vulnerabilities are. So we do train that as well. And there are whole other domains that I can talk about, but those are the three more common ones that we see in today's market.
And who do your clients tend to be normally? These like sovereign governments or?
That's a great question. A lot of our client base is quite wide because we train a lot of different domains and at all levels, from beginner to advanced. So we get someone who hasn't touched cybersecurity at all. They could come to us for training, or somebody with even
like when
10,
companies are trying
years.
to set up their cybersecurity.
Yes, they would come find us, or someone who just joined the government cybersecurity teams. They could come for training as well. They could be there for like 10 years and they could still come for training, the more advanced ones. I would say typically people come for training, either government folks, or we have banks, telcos, financial services. Those are usually the ones that are I need they're very strict compliance requirements. So they want to make sure that they have as little cybersecurity attacks as possible.
Okay, and you've been in cybersecurity pretty much all your career now, right?
I'd say about the last 6-7 years. Yeah.
Just the last 6 years when you were in army as well?
Well, in the army, as most Singaporeans would know, I was actually army officer first. So my vocation is artillery. So I was out in the jungle a lot, but sporadically in between those times, I was actually doing cybersecurity.
Okay. Yep. And so it was only after university that you were like cyber?
Yes. I actually don't know anything about cybersecurity until I joined the military. So
okay.
Even during university...
How did you get slotted in there? Yeah.
This is an interesting story. So I was actually supposed to do manpower planning. And then I think about a month or 2 weeks before that, somebody somewhere probably thought it's a good idea for me to join the cybersecurity. Then we were called...
Never explained why.
Nope. I was just told to go.
Sure.
And I said, yes, I'm ready to go. But of course, that turned out to be a really good decision. And I ended up, I'm really enjoying myself in cybersecurity a lot.
And what made you decide that you wanted to stay in cybersecurity? I know that you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But after doing it for so many years as part of your bond, we find that a lot of scholars tend to do something else afterwards, right? So how come you decided to stick with it?
That's a great question. I think coming out, I was kind of thinking, okay, I have military experience, not much else though, right? So what would be an industry that I, one, enjoy, and two, that would actually want to hire me, right? And it turned out that cybersecurity is one of them. I think over the last couple of years, cybersecurity has become really, really important and in demand. And so coming out, I think it was one of the more attractive industries to go into. As you know, Cybersecurity Agency of Singapore was only set up 8 years ago, right? So coming out, I think Singapore has really matured, and it was at a stage where I could go into the industry and be able to find a job.
Okay. Yeah. And I think touching on what you said, that cybersecurity is something that has become big relatively recently. Like you said, CAS was only created 8 years ago. We're finding a few of our students who pop up and say, I might be interested in computer science, but then there's also cybersecurity. You've worked with quite a few of them.
I did.
On Discovery and Head Start. How is that something that you feel very strongly about, trying to make students aware of cybersecurity, bring people into the industry? I know that you were involved in setting up some sort of scholarship while you were in the army as well, right? A cybersecurity specific one.
Yeah. So, well, that's a lot packed into that question. Let's take it one at a time. I think I'm very excited, and I think that I try to talk to as much about cybersecurity as possible to anybody who will listen, really. And I think that cybersecurity, unlike your traditional domains like accountancy, finance, and the like, or engineering for that matter, people with no degree, it's not that difficult to pivot into. It's still a very nascent industry, and there's
one
a huge
doesn't
shortage.
need hard computer science.
No, you do not need a degree. I would say having the skills, the certifications, typically those speak better to your abilities to do all in cybersecurity than any degree would. So that's the first part. I strongly recommend, I think, people to get into it. There are a lot of good resources out there. We can talk about that later if you want. And on the second part, I think it wasn't really a scholarship. It was more like a cyber NSF program. So I think typically we would know that cybersecurity is military national service is about 2 years thing.
Yeah.
So we did like a 3 or 4 year scheme where we get people in, we train them in cybersecurity, and then they go to contribute in longer capacity for us.
Okay.
So in exchange for the training, they spend a longer time with us.
Sure.
I think it's going pretty well. The first batch has graduated, I think, last year.
So and they're all still with the army, right?
So this is a 4-year program. So after the 4-year program, they finished it. They went off, so they should be going out and graduating a degree next year.
Oh, okay.
So they're no worse off than their peers. Their peers will also graduate next year. It's just that they spend 4 years in the army instead of 2 years, and then they spend 2 years in their studies instead of 4 years, which is what their peers typically do. So ended up, you still have 6 years worth of like time.
So they spend 2 years in university no matter what uni they go to, or is there a certain number?
Well, from the start, it was only SIT, but now I think the collaboration has opened up to NUS and the like. I'm obviously not in the military anymore, so I can't tell you the exact program, but I'd say that's kind of the thinking that we had when going in. Yep.
Okay. And coming back to your new role, is that any different to what you were doing at DART?
So slightly different. I think now I look at Singapore and Southeast Asia. Previously, DART's very Singapore-based. So I get exposed to the cybersecurity industry and seen both in like Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, Brunei, Vietnam, and our region. That gives me perspective. I think at the different maturity levels and kind of the different needs of the markets. That's something that I'm still learning every day.
Okay, got it. And then I think the new job is also taking you to a new home, right? You're going to be moving to Australia. You're leaving us and going to Australia soon enough.
I am leaving you guys, so I guess I wouldn't see you for at least a good another year.
Well, in person.
If you have me back, of course.
We'll definitely have you back.
I'm moving to Canberra for my wife is doing a master's there. So I'll be moving to Canberra as a working adult now. I'll be working remotely from Canberra.
Are you looking forward to it? Have you been to Australia before long term?
I have been to Australia, but not Canberra.
Okay. Most people haven't, right?
Yeah. I hope people don't cancel me for this in the comments, but I've heard that Canberra, there isn't really very much to do there. People are usually mostly there for work, but I'm hoping to see if there's anything exciting.
I had a friend of mine, well, again, it's not to really hate on Canberra. I had a friend of mine that was... he was teaching at a university over here and then went over on exchange to Canberra for a month, and he was incredibly excited about it.
Okay.
And on the way there, he had stopped in Melbourne and he was like, Australia is wonderful. You should consider moving here. And I was like, okay, cool. And I didn't hear from him for a couple of weeks. And then I messaged him and I was like, how's everything? Like, terrible. This place is so different from Melbourne. You should go to Melbourne, but don't come here. Wow. And he said a few more colorful things, which I shan't repeat over here.
PG
but well, it's 1 year, right?
Yeah.
And then hopefully we have you back here again.
I hope so. So I think a lot of students do go to Australia.
Quite a few,
Quite a number of students want to go to Australia,
especially in the medical realm.
Yep.
I think it's generally safer. Medicine tends to be possibly the most competitive course.
Yes.
Not just in Singapore, but globally.
Agreed.
And typically students from Singapore who want to study medicine will either do it here, NUS or NTU, or go to one of the 14 recognized universities in the UK or one of the 4 or 5 in Australia.
Right.
So, we typically recommend, we've gone off topic here, but we typically recommend that students apply to Australia for, if they're doing law, if they're doing medicine, just provide a safety blanket for them.
Right.
Yeah. So you might be surrounded by a bunch of our students. You never know.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, Australian National University is right there, so
yeah,
it's right in the neighborhood.
Yeah. And how has everything been with all your students at IvyPrep?
Actually, it's been quite an exciting year. So, as you said, I started the discovery program. So I'm not just leading the discovery program, but I'm also like the the strategist for cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm.
So I do take students through the cybersecurity track if that's something that they choose. So I have like 3 students right now, and all very very exciting. I'm very excited. I was very excited to introduce them to the world of cybersecurity. On top, besides that, I think now we're actually in crunch time.
Yeah.
I'm not sure when this will come out, but now we're in November. Today is November 28th as we are filming this, so we're in crunch time. I think
Definitely. I mean, you see applications that due day after tomorrow.
They are.
And
then regular decision.
ED results come out in a couple of weeks, so we're keeping our fingers crossed for that one. Yeah. Oof.
Yeah. So lots of preparation in the last 1 month for students who are still applying.
Before we continue, I would like to take a quick break to remind you to subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review on your favorite platform. Your feedback helps us improve and to reach a wider audience to provide further insight into this arduous journey. Also, if you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes, feel free to email us at our email linked in the description below. We'd love to hear from you. And so I just want to go back. We touched upon this briefly during our first interview, so all those months ago.
Yeah.
Where does your interest in admissions come from? Because obviously you were a student interviewer before, you've been involved in admissions in a personal capacity for quite a few years, even before IvyPrep.
Yeah.
Where does that, so alongside cybersecurity, admission seems to be your other long-term thing, right?
It is.
Where does that interest come from?
So I think it really started from the fact that when I was going through it myself, it was actually a really challenging period because I had no idea this whole admission process. When I was applying for myself, I had to figure it out myself. And after I got in, trying to navigate the US education system is another ballgame altogether as well. So combined, I mean, I feel like I just wish that somebody would have been there when I applied to kind of guide me along. Whether that be the administrative side of things or even just having a look at my essays, having a look at my profile and see, hey, how can I make it better? So I really would have valued that experience and advice of somebody else. And then I realized coming back that really there isn't very much in Singapore for that. So I decided, hey, if I really care about something, I should just do it myself. So I've been doing it for like 8 years now. So
yeah, and specifically with IvyPrep, you've been a little bit more interested or focusing more on the younger students, right? So people who are in Sec 3, Sec 4, grade 9 and 10. I'm speaking particularly of the discovery segment of a student's journey with us, right? Where they figure out, most students who are that age and many people now aren't really sure what they want to do long term, right? And especially when you're 9th grade, you haven't really chosen your subjects as you would in the A levels or APs or IB. So you don't have that focus yet. And many people, parents are always asking, what do you want to do long term? What sort of profession will you look at? Most people don't know. And so discovery sort of just helps them through that journey of figuring out what, professional and academic life looks like in those particular domains and then help them choose it. So why that specifically?
I think...
And I guess, sorry, as a follow-up
question,
how have you seen it unfold over the last year and a half?
So I think a lot of our when we first started IvyPrep, a lot of what we do was with 17, 18-year-olds, those who are really in the thick of admission applications. And the problem with that is that we can help them with the application itself. But in terms of helping them, discover what they like, what they're interested in, looking at what they should be doing, it's a little bit late for that when you're coming to us, 6 months before your application.
So you need the ingredients to cook the Christmas dinner.
Exactly. So generally, I would say we want to help them better. To help them better, to get to know them more, follow them along their journey. It's easier to start earlier. And I always thought it'd be great if somebody would have told me, because I grew up in an Asian family. My parents wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer, as most Asian parents do.
Same here, man.
So
look at me now, Mom.
Me too. I'm not in any of those professions. So for me, a lot of it is, I wish someone would have told me what other career paths that might be, right? Whether that be an entrepreneur, cybersecurity, computer science, a vet, or whatever, really. An author, artist, anything. And I wish someone would have told me about what those careers entail so that I can make a more informed decision. And so that's really the impetus behind this, to start earlier, have a little bit more runway where we can kind of walk their journey with them and expose them to other possible career options or other possible study options that they can pursue in university and beyond. So that really was impetus where we started that. And I think it's grown. We definitely see a lot of demand. I think a lot of students and parents share the same belief that I did. And so we have now probably about 10 to 12 different tracks in discovery alone that people can do. Anywhere from history, chemistry, physics, you have your usual medicine, lawyer, finance, even cybersecurity now is one of them.
Cybersecurity. There's management consulting.
Management consulting. So there are a lot of different tracks. We're still growing. We're still looking for people to help us work through different tracks. And the key here is that these people who are in charge of delivering those tracks have to be in the industry, so that they understand what it's like to be in the industry, to work in the industry, and then they can impart that knowledge to our students as well.
It's interesting because I was just speaking to one of your former students, international school student, interested in the humanities and theater, but incredibly talented in sciences as well. And so he wanted to explore a few different things, including medicine, but also politics, sociology, history, economics. And I think through that process of exploration, he's like, I'm still really good at math and science, but I think to me I'm good at it, but it's not something that I necessarily enjoy. And going through medicine in terms of, what I'd have to do at university, what I'd be doing for a living, maybe that's not quite my cup of tea. And so now he knows he's going to focus his time and energy more towards the humanities, right?
Okay.
And extracurricular wise, he's still doing fantastic in drama and theater.
Yeah.
But he knows now, and now we have a pretty good blueprint or plan of how he can work on his profile over the next few years to prepare for university as well. So, fantastic feedback from him and from his dad, so parents. So I can see it working real time. I guess since we're talking about, because to me, if we were to describe how you have been working with students and what discovery is supposed to mean to students, it's, to offer them insight, clarity, and foresight as well, right? So if you were to look back on your own journey and reflect on it, would you have done anything different? Would you have liked to explore alternative pathways or look at other choices? I know that you've done really well for yourself, both professionally as well as, with IvyPrep, but just as a sort of exercise, if you were to think about that.
To be really honest, I think if I had to redo kind of my academic career, there are a few things I would have done. One, I would have tried more things. I think in particular, I tried to run my own, start something when I was younger, where there's less risk if you fail, or less consequences if you fail. I would certainly have tried something new in that space. And two, I think, going back to my university life, I probably wouldn't have done everything that I did. Probably would have
in terms of all the degrees.
Yeah, I probably would have streamlined it a little bit more. One, to give myself more time to enjoy university.
So if I can stop you there, just to explain what we're talking about. Matthias completed 4 degrees while he was in UPenn. There were 2 bachelor degrees and 2 master's degrees, right? So a lot to pack into just those 4 years. Did you take double the required modules at some point? Yeah, so you got
probably
crazy,
double
right?
For a couple of semesters.
At a point in time.
Yeah.
So that's what he's talking about when he talks about cramming all sorts of stuff into his university life.
Yeah.
Sorry to.
No, not at all. Yeah. So obviously, I think 4 was probably too many. I probably would have done 2 or depending on. So I think why it ended up becoming 4 was because as I went along, I knew I was interested at the beginning. As I went along, I was interested in more things and I wanted to do and study more things. But on hindsight, if I could do it again, I would have just picked the things that I was really interested in and just focus in on those. And just spend the rest of the time, being a college student, having a lot more fun, doing a lot more things outside of academics to begin with. Yeah.
Okay. What would those things outside of academics be?
Probably I traveled even more.
You did a lot of road trips, right?
I did a lot of road trips because I was in sailing. So I get to go to a lot of colleges that I would never have been to. So that was
Uluwan somewhere.
Very Uluwans. That's a whole other story, but I don't think appropriate for this podcast.
The road trips.
The road trips and what happened. I think you obviously watch a lot.
I don't know. We've spoken about a couple crazy things here and there on this podcast.
We have. Not sure for this one, but
should watch Divya's.
You know what? I would. So I think I would probably have traveled more. I would probably picked up more things like new sports, new hobbies.
Oh, you were track and field, right? Along with
I was in track and field and sailing. But I probably would have picked up, American football since I was there anyway. Maybe ice hockey, maybe skiing. Yeah, more of those sort of things.
Okay.
You know, I feel like things that you get to do when you're overseas.
And academically, would you have done something different? I know that you said you probably would have specialized a bit more.
Yeah.
Do you have any inkling of what that specialty would have been?
Yeah, actually, I probably would have not. So my undergraduate was in PPE and my master's was in philosophy.
Right.
I probably would have just done philosophy.
All the way through?
Yeah, because I would
But you
have
did
gotten...
computer science as well.
I did do computer science. So maybe philosophy and computer science.
Okay, why that?
Because I think after going through PP, so PPE, the way it works is there are 3 kind of disciplines, and they try to find commonalities and similarities between them, so that when you study, you get a good, diverse viewpoints, PP and E, right? But I think at the end of the day, I did like political philosophy the most out of all the things I've done in PPE, and that was kind of what I focused on in my master's as well. So I thought it'd be, if I could redo it again, I would just have done that.
So slight digression, because of something you just said. PPE, right? Philosophy, politics, economics, quite popular in the UK.
Yep.
Right? Often touted as the course that future prime ministers will take.
Yes.
Right? I think a bunch of them did it, right?
Prime ministers or management consultants.
Management consultants. But it's almost overwhelmingly a UK course, right? It's not offered by a lot of universities in the US, but Penn does
offer it. Yeah.
For students who are really interested in PPE or interested in what that, the trifecta of those things can bring, how do you recommend they go about choosing their modules or courses if their school may offer politics, philosophy, or economics, but not the 3 of them together?
So I think Penn is pretty unique in being one of the few schools that offer PPE. So there's a lot of flexibility in choice of doing how you want to combine PP and E. So I say that in terms of like electives, you can pick, there are very wide range you can pick that would fulfill the requirement. And that's to cater to people who take PPE, who generally is interested in more than one discipline. So that's to cater to that. If your school doesn't offer it, there are a couple of ways you can do it, right? You can either do a double major, so you pick PP or P and E.
And then minor in the third.
Or you could do a single major with 2 minors, depending on your interest. That's usually what I would recommend.
And how does one typically go around double majoring?
Double major requires some level of planning, because I think you would be required to take more classes than you usually would. Yeah. So you do need to plan ahead and see which semesters you want to take more classes. The combination of those classes as well is important. You don't want to take all 6 really difficult classes.
So there will be different levels to each module.
There will be different levels, so you do have to plan it. I feel like that was a whole new session altogether for me to just talk about how do you pick classes and how do you, how do you work through.
It must have been quite a puzzle in and of itself, right?
It was. So I think
and with the timings.
That was really painful. So one funny story, I think. So typically at Penn at least, people will take anywhere from 4 to 5.5, 6 classes. There were a couple of semesters where I took 8 classes, and that
for double.
Something like that. That really made it difficult in terms of curriculum planning, not just in terms of actual getting through the classes, but curriculum planning. So I think there were a couple of semesters where I had overlaps in classes. So you got to be creative about it. Talk to the professors, talk to advisors. You do need special approval for that to work. Or take night classes. That would be the other thing so a lot of tips and tricks that you can kind of use to play around with the career, the academic career, how you want to plan it out. Yeah.
That's all for today's episode of Dear Applicants. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you found the content valuable and insightful. If you'd like to learn more about our guests or the topics we discussed, be sure to check out our show notes for links and further resources.